This is a short video that's designed to show how to use a CreateSpace cover template with a program like Photoshop. Please note, though, that most modern photo editing programs have similar features, and really any one that works in layers can be used with the template. You don't necessarily have to have Photoshop in order to make this work. I apologize in advance. I'm trying to get this up quickly, so I don't have the amount of time to refine the video that I might like, but I trust the information will still be useful. For legal purposes, I will mention that the product names and company names that are in the video are naturally all trademarked by their respective owners, and that the software images for Photoshop are being used for educational purposes only. Now, this is the template that I created for my book, Living with Your Past Selves. The templates differ based on the dimensions that you input. So, cut size. How big is your book going to be? Mine was going to be 6 by 9, so that, of course, is what I input. 264 pages. The number of pages is obviously critical in determining this spine width. But that's also influenced by whether you're going to have a black and white print or color interior and what color of paper, although I'm not quite sure why that makes a difference in size, but apparently it does. Anyway, and when the template prints, it's got all of those dimensions just in case you made a mistake. You can say, oops, that's something I need to fix before I start working on the template, because if the template isn't the right dimensions for your book, you're wasting your time. Now, you'll also notice there's a barcode location down here. And that's important because you can't put, well, you could put something there, but whatever, like image or text is underneath this is not going to show because the barcode will print over the top of it. Similarly, you'll notice this red line, or well, it's called red, it looks more orange to me, but this line that runs all the way around the template and up both sides of the spine. That's a bleed area. I didn't know what that meant either until I started working with these templates. Basically, that's an area that you should keep your major images and your text out of because it will not be visible. On the spine, because it's going to be folded along, the book cover will be folded along the spine. On these other edges with the black dotted lines, because you've got a trim edge there, part of that is going to be removed in the process of creating the cover. So you're probably thinking, well, then why is it there if it's going to be removed? I assume because the cover cutting is perhaps not an exact science, and the CreateSpace printers, like other printers, want to have a little bit of a margin for error there. So that's an area that you're not going to have, you want to stay clear of just to make sure. But, and this is important, CreateSpace doesn't want to have a white line around your cover. So they're going to reject something that doesn't have color of some kind or something bleed into this area. That's why it's called bleed. The easiest way to do that is to put a solid color layer behind all of your other images. Now, think about layers, because I created my cover. I've actually got a whole group of layers over here already. Think of layers as like a stack of things. Your template is probably going to be your background layer. That's on the bottom of the stack automatically. You add things to the stack as you go along. Now, you'll notice you can change the order of the layers. I've got layer 2. The numbering is determined by when they're created. I've got layer 2 beneath layer 1. So obviously I manipulated those at some point. The order of the layers is important because the one on the top covers the ones on the bottom, as you'll see. You can change that to some extent by making one of the layers semi-transparent or maybe even entirely transparent. We're not going to mess too much with that, but I will mention it a little bit later on. Anyway, this is the layer I stacked immediately above the template. Because of the nature of my cover, I was going for a black background. Now, if you were going to create a layer from scratch, you would go over to the Layer menu, and I think actually I created a fill layer that was a solid color and specified the color. You can create other kinds of layers though in the same way, and if you want, for some reason, you need to have two layers that are the same, you can create a duplicate layer. Um, you can also use that duplicate layer routine to transfer layers from one image to another. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video, but it is something that you can do fairly easily, actually, should you need to at some point in the future. Now, for a pre-existing layer like this one, if you want to change the color, you'd go over to Edit and Fill, or you could press Shift F5, as you can see. And then, oh, actually the opacity on that should be set to 100%. On a fill layer, you can't really make it transparent anyway. You could make the color lighter if you wanted to. But anyway, you can select the foreground color. You'll notice up here, by the way, Photoshop has a foreground color. In this case, I have it set for black and the background for white. But if you don't like either of those, then you have basically the whole spectrum that you can change your fill layer to. Might be useful to know that in case you pick a color and then you want to change it without having to start the whole layering thing over again. Now, you can create layers, as I just said, using the layer menu, but Photoshop and other programs will automatically create layers for you in two situations. Number one, if you add a graphic, which you can do by copying and pasting or dragging into this area. And once you do that, you'll notice, for example, my front cover image, there it goes, is a separate layer. And if I wanted to go back and check to make sure that it's not trespassing on the bleed area, I just turn that black layer behind it off, and I can see it's well away from the bleed. I don't need to worry. I had to keep going back and forth with that to ensure that I didn't have a problem. But again, that layer was created for me automatically when I added the image. Same thing with my back cover image. And there you go. You'll sort of see how that fits in a minute. Now, it really doesn't matter what order the text pieces fall in because basically they're not going to be covering anything else except part of the image that's just background. So those can be stacked arbitrarily. It doesn't particularly matter. Now, there's the title. If somebody needs another video, I can show you how to center those kind of things on the image or position them wherever you want. But basically, they're movable. There's a text tool over here. If you switch to it, you can actually edit this text as needed. You'll notice a line appears and a cursor and so forth. You can change the direction of the text. That's useful for the spine. If you need to, you can change the size of the text. You can do bendy things with the text. You can make it 3D. I'm not going to mess with that right now. But there are a lot of different things you can do, and most photo editors will let you do most of those things. When you're done editing the text, you turn that off so you don't accidentally move it around or do something else weird with it. Here is my name on the front. It's small. I guess I was feeling humble that day. I used some special effects, though, to make it stand out against what was kind of a difficult background to work with. The pebbles are all kinds of different colors. Most people want to go larger on that, but in any case, you can see how it lays out. Now, I do believe this one is spine. Yeah, you'll notice the title's running along the spine as it should. That's because I changed the text orientation. And there's my name there. I made those as two separate objects so that I could manipulate the distance between them. Had I done them as one long run, I would not have been able to adjust the spacing later on. Let's see, here we go. Then there's some more text on the back. By the way, this green did not work out as well as I had hoped. It doesn't show up as well on the actual printed copy. That's why you always get a proof copy. In fact, it turns out darker. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not as vibrant as it is on the computer, unfortunately. That's why we look at proof copies. Um, I also shrank the text a little bit, though, for this is actually the second printing of the cover because I wanted to add a little excerpt from my Kirkus review, so that's down there. And I made it lighter so it would stand out because I really wanted to emphasize that. Once I got it, I figured if you've got it, flaunt it, right? Now, you have all those elements in there. Again, you want to turn off that black to make sure that you're not trespassing on the cut lines. Now, of course, then the Kirkus review text being white disappears, so you might have to toggle back and forth a little bit to make sure. But you'll notice it does not, in fact, trespass on that barcode area. So when the book prints, in fact, neither does this text. So when the book prints, the barcode is here, and the text is all safe from it. Everything is nicely and neatly within the cut lines, the trim edges, I guess I should say. Um, but there is a color on the bleed, so the cover will be accepted. That may have been too fast, but the virtue of videos is you can always replay it if you need it. I hope that that helps those of you that were struggling with the CreateSpace covers a little bit. I don't have the time right now to go through a step-by-step on every single one of the processes I talked about, but I can certainly do that later if it's needed. Anyway, hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an idea. Remember, the layer concept is just like a stack of things. You put one element on top of the other, and you make sure that they mesh properly. And if you've done that, you're going to be in good shape.